Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today, we're going to go into one woman's message, one woman's journey into two areas: divorce, family values, support systems, and more importantly, something that a lot of people deal with, whether you're male or female, but this is call it what it is: age discrimination in the workforce, and how that can really take a toll on you, especially when you have a family, especially when you're married, and even more so if you're married and you're dealing with bullshit in the marriage and you need this job and you get passed over because you just don't have the right age. Today, all the way from New Jersey, we have a woman who went through all this and definitely is keeping that beast mindset. She's here to tell her story that no matter what, age is just a number. And if you keep fighting, even through an ugly divorce, you can still keep going. I'd like to welcome to the show the one, the only, the new author, because she also is getting ready to write a book, Marcy Harrington, to the show. What's up, Marcy?
What's up? How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful Friday. It's sunny outside, and it's just beautiful. Before we get started, tell the viewers a little bit about you.
Well, I'm 49 years old. I'm divorced, single mom for most of the time. I grew up in Chicago for most of my life, moved to New Jersey as a part of my ex-husband's job, and now I'm staying in New Jersey. I spend the money to live in a really good school district for my kids, and I'm basically here for them, and I'll be here till they're done with school because it's important to not, rip them up from everything they've got going on. And I pay a lot of money to live in the school district too. So, but I'm in New Jersey. Recently lost my job a little over a week ago, and have been working hard at trying to get back out there and trying to really secure the next best thing, which I know is out there. It's just a matter of time.
Now, let's talk about your job for a minute, because that's one of the reasons that you're here. So we'll start there. You're from Chicago. You wind up moving to Jersey, but let's stick with the job for right now. How long have you an accountant? How long have you been an accountant? Is that what you went to college for?
Yes, it is. Yep. Been doing it forever.
So what's forever? Because you're 49 years old. What's forever?
Since I graduated from college in 1997.
So we won't get into the firm or whatever, that the company that you work for, but you was a pretty dependable employee, right? So tell me, what were some of the things you had to do with your job? What was your job titles? Like, what was your role with this company?
With this company, I was a senior accountant, but I've had so many different roles in different industries throughout my time, doing accounting after college, where I was working with, financial services firms. I was an accounting manager. I was an assistant controller. I actually left the true, I don't want to call it true, but financial services world, and took a less, I guess you want to maybe say prestigious job, to stay home and raise my two kids, who were very small when I got divorced. And so I stayed home in a time where there was no remote work, but this job allowed me to do that. So my kids got older. I had a school bus that comes in front of the house to pick them up. And I decided I wanted my career back. So I went back out there, worked to get a job in New York City, because that's where I have been working since I've kind of returned to the, I guess you want to call it, the formal workforce. And honestly, I still have a lot of drive in me. I feel like I could still go very far, and I really want to. And, like you were saying, we were talking about age. I think that maybe there's a misconception that people that are older don't have that. Maybe they just want to go and sit behind a desk and do the same thing every day. And I don't want that. I want to have opportunities. I want to progress. And I feel like I have plenty of years left in me for that.
Now, the company that you work for, was there ever any indications of something like this happening to other employees that work for this company that you witnessed, or why do you feel like that your job was easily replaced by someone that was younger?
Well, the company, just because of the way the markets were, the company had been doing, you know, making some changes, we'll say, prior to this. The company that I was working for had gotten acquired by another company,
Mhm.
and they'd said, there would be some redundancies amongst the companies, and that they were going to have conversations with all of us about all the tasks that we do. So it could have been coming, and I actually started applying for jobs prior to that just to be prepared. So I can't even tell you how many hundreds of applications I've sent out and how many rejection letters that I've gotten even before I actually got terminated. But when I got terminated, there was another person that worked for my company, not one of the acquiring companies, who was about 15 years younger than me, had only been there less than a year, and I had been there for over 2 years with my experience.
So why do you think that I know this ain't the company speaking on behalf of it, because I don't want to go there, but the, nevertheless, you got let go of. Your co-workers, or one of your co-workers, succeeded you. 15 years difference in age bracket, far less experience. Why do you, I mean, but still, why do you think that they let you go? It's like I would keep more experience. Did it have to do with money? Did you make more money than the other person? Like, really, why do you think that you was targeted?
I don't know. And no one ever told me why. I just got a message Wednesday morning saying, "Can you talk?" My boss was on the phone, HR was on the phone, and they just gave me the message then, and that was it. Then they just cut me off from everything, sent me the box for my computer because I'd been working from home. And I actually, they gave me a certain amount of severance. I did go back with the help of a very good friend and colleague of mine from a former job, and came back to them kind of with a counter offer, asking for more, explaining, the difficulties of finding a job at my age, also explaining, that I did do excellent at the company. My last bonus was 20% of my salary. So there weren't indications that it was going to be me at all.
When you went back to HR and you talked about these key factors, your age, what you did, the difficulties going back into a different job transition, how was it met? How did they address that?
They said that we have received your request and we will get back to you. So I've still not heard. I haven't heard anything yet. I sent the letter back. It was Friday actually, so it's been about a week.
I know you sit now and ponder on why do you think it happened, but realistically, why do you think that happened?
I honestly have no idea. I don't want to make assumptions
Right.
because I don't want to, be incorrect about anything that I'm saying in terms of, the other person and the reason why it happened, but um, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure what happened behind the scenes because I never even had a chance to meet with the new company to describe, all of the things that I do. And honestly, the person that they decided to keep was already doing some of the tasks that I used to do because once we hired her, I was able to take on more. And honestly, in a short period of time, they had let my old boss go. A coworker of mine was decided to leave. So I've never said no to them to taking on new responsibilities. I worked weekends. I had deadlines, and I never said I couldn't make the deadline. If I had to be up till 2 in the morning, I would be up till 2 in the morning. If I had to work on the weekend, I would work on the weekend. I always made things happen. I'm a person like that. You give me a deadline, and it happens.
Knowing that you're a person that makes things happen and knowing that you've given every ounce of your being to a company. Now, this is a two-part question. You don't have to mention the company's name, but is it a company that's known globally, worldwide?
No.
So it's a private, almost a private company.
Yes.
But how long have they been around, roughly? 15, 20, 30 years?
You mean in general or the
Yeah.
company itself?
Yeah.
The company itself has been around 10 years.
So 10 years, and you devoted how much time to the company? How many years?
Over 2 years.
Over 2 years, doing overtime, doing whatever it takes. How does that make you feel knowing that you given all of your time, even some moments away from your family, your two kids and your husband? I mean, how does that make you feel now?
Well, at that point, I didn't have a husband, so it was just me.
Mhm.
I spent a lot of time away from my kids, um, a lot of stress. And unfortunately, being very stressed, I wasn't always the mother I should have been or could have been. I wasn't a bad mother by any means, but I could have devoted a lot more time to them. Um, the other thing, at first I had a lot of mixed feelings. I was sad um, just because of the change. One of the people from there reached out to me and said, it was really great working with you. I reached out to multiple other of my former colleagues on LinkedIn just about the situation. And then it also made me mad, honestly, that I'd put so much of myself into it for it to come to this and to be given no explanation for what happened. And had it been someone from one of the other companies and, oh, she did the same things I did, they had to make a decision. Okay, they kept that person. This person was with my exact same company. So the fact that, I trained her on things
Oh,
and she was doing things that, I had done prior and I was doing so much more. It really, it did not hit me well.
had you gotten over um, the situation with the divorce? Because your divorce wasn't pleasant. Because that's what we're talking about. Divorce, and we're talking about the age discrimination as well. But let's go back a little bit. You said you was divorced prior to getting involved in all this. Had you gotten over the trauma that you went through in your divorce?
It wasn't just the trauma in the divorce. There was, but there were also, I was divorced almost 10 years. I have been, it'll be 10 years this August, but I had a lot of relationships that followed a lot of patterns that were related to the way, that things ended up and the type of a personality and the way I handled things in my marriage. So,
Hold on a
you know,
minute, Marcy. Go back a minute. When you say before we get into exactly a little bit of what happened in your marriage. Let's talk about that word that you said. You've been in multiple relationships after the divorce. The divorce was 10 years ago, but you mentioned a key word here, pattern. Explain what you mean by that, that you kept getting in these same patterns with different relationships.
It was just with the same type of a person. And, you know, I've been going to therapy and I've come a long way now. I used to not be very well in terms of being alone. I couldn't be alone. I always had to be busy. I couldn't be just okay with myself. And that took a while for it to be like that for me. I didn't always have to be with someone to be okay. And the patterns are just seeing the type of a person that I was attracted to and seeing, I guess, just ignoring red flags in people.
Give me an example of the red flags that you was ignoring as it relates to you. And were you suffering from codependency in the relationship, that you needed somebody to be there, that you couldn't, because you said you couldn't be alone, but what was codependency one of the things that you needed, and what were the red flags that you should have seen but you kept allowing into your space?
Well, I honestly was always choosing narcissistic men that had basically all of the qualities, all of the, you know, they call it the love bombing, all of the let's get married in 6 months. It was just, I was always so sucked into all of that. And I just ignored anything that could be considered as negative. So I had at least 2 other, you know, significant relationships where I went through that. I had a boyfriend of 3 years, and it never should have lasted that long. But I could only walk away for so long, and then I was just drawn back. And, you know, they call that the whole trauma bond thing. You know, your brain knows, well, your heart knows also, but you know you shouldn't be with that person. It's not right. It's never going to be right. But walking away and totally disconnecting is the hardest thing.
What were they doing that kept luring you back? We hear that word all the time in when people's relationships goes bad and they start new relationship. We hear this word narcissistic. But what were some of the things that they were doing that was bringing you back? Because to me, if this is a repeated cycle and you kept seeing it, why didn't you just walk away?
It's just not that easy. Really, you have this bond with this person, and no matter how bad they treat you, you walk away for days. You say you're done. They say they're done. There's horrible things that are said. But, you know, you give it a few days and then they come back like, you know, nothing changed, and, you know, promises of changing and making, you know, differences and how things are going to be different, or trying to totally blame me and saying, you're just creating this, you're self-sabotaging, so this is why this isn't working. So honestly, it really makes a person question themselves.
Let's move back a little bit more, because I'm
Sure.
taking the viewers into decisions made after the divorce. And let's go into before the divorce. You mentioned that you knew, this is so funny because we hear this all the time from people, no matter what the age, this is what they say. I knew I shouldn't have got with that person. I knew I shouldn't have married that person. But you know, I'm gonna ask you the $1 million question. I think you said you was 19 years old when you got married.
I was actually older. I didn't get married till I was 30.
Why did you get married? You said you knew all these things. You saw the so-called flags. Why did you get married?
To be completely honest with you, I'd had random relationships here and there with different people. Nothing was ever lasting. I don't want to say this in
Hold
a
down.
bad
You
way.
hold down a minute. I got to cut you off on this. You're 30 some years old. I'm sorry about the age. I thought you said 19. That's my fault. I'm looking at the wrong
Okay.
notes. So let's go here for a minute. Before you got married, you had all these relationships and so forth. I mean, what's going on? You didn't with these that you keep seeing these different that they're not working for you. Like, what's going on here?
Well, it's bad judgment on my part, 1000%. Really believing and having a good heart and thinking the best of people is one thing. And I think that, that's something I work on too. Another thing is just having people be very smooth. And to be honest with you, I don't want to sound like I'm full of myself or anything, but there were just way too many men that only wanted me for looks and whatever they could get out of me. And they were very smooth about that. Things could last however they lasted, in terms of length. And, it was just these
What
like,
was attracting you to them? Because you kept gravitating to them.
well,
So
they were attractive. I mean, I wasn't looking for just a good guy that treated me good because of my, patterns and my lifetime. I was always looking for the distant ones that, played the games and weren't straightforward, and to being with someone that was a really good guy, did nice things for me, treated me well. It just didn't feel right to me because I was so used to the opposite. And, coming forward to now, I've grown a lot. So, when people are good to me, I see that, I appreciate that. And it's not all about, how good somebody looks. And just because, I'm interested in the physical portion of things, because I'm not. I mean, I really want something that's real.
so you wind up getting married, you said in your 30s and
Yes.
stuff. But prior to that, you kept running into all of these different things. So I guess even in your 30s when you got married, you still didn't recognize what you was dealing with because you hadn't started therapy yet. I'm just assuming. So you still creating this environment with this one guy, the guy that you get married to. So you get married to this guy in your 30s. What attracted you to him, and what was the outcome of that relationship? Because I think it was that relationship that really was your awakening call to self-development to where you're at now.
He was one of the only ones, I would say, that was persistent with me, I guess, in terms of um, just always planning ahead. We always had something going on. I always knew, what was next, I guess. Everybody else was kind of all over the place. And he was the one persistent one about being with me that was there. And honestly, I think it was, even though it wasn't healthy, it was one of the first real relationships that I had in my life where, I mean, I didn't grow up in a very loving, caring, affectionate, warm, fuzzy family. And that's a long story for another time. But, this was one where, it was the first time I was telling someone, I love you. And it wasn't right away, but it was something that I'd really never had before.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that because it was the first real thing where I experienced that, it really drew me in. And, we just ended up, together and eventually getting married.
When did the shift change?
It wasn't good from the start. We can put it that way.
What do you mean when you say it wasn't good for the start? Because you wind up marrying the guy. So something had to be there, or you just said, I'm just going to try to see if maybe I can work or fix it. Which one was it?
That's what it was. Like I said, before, I always believe the best in people. And a lot of times that hurts me. So I kept thinking that things could be better and, he could be better, we could be better. And, after a certain point, after that many years, it just didn't change. There was a point I thought I had to stay in it until I actually talked to an attorney because I just thought I had to live that way for the rest of my life. And, until, like I said, I spoke to an attorney, I was at the point where I was just going to live that.
What do you mean when you say just live that way? Because I think women need to hear this part of your story. What were you going through and that you had to live this way?
I was unhappy. I was constantly given the silent treatment. Everything was my fault. There was no accountability on anything on his part. There was never anything he could ever do wrong. I was the mother. He would go to work at 5 a.m, come home at 7 p.m. And I was the one that was home, raising the kids from, dusk until dawn. It was very hard. I had no family around me when I had my kids. I was very alone. I went through a lot during that time. So I always thought it was just how it had to be.
You mentioned you had no family. What was the disconnect between your family? What was that like for your family, and why wasn't your family involved?
They were too far. I mean, my mother was in Illinois and I was in New Jersey, and I really had no one when I moved out.
Your relationship that you accepted, was it mental? Was it physical? Was it verbal? Was it all the things rolled up into one?
What do you mean by that? My relationship or
In your marriage, like we hear people say they stay in things. Do you stay in a relationship because you're getting beat? Do you stay in a relationship because you're getting verbalized? Do you stay in a relationship because your husband is doing inappropriate shit? I mean, what was it like for you doing that?
a lot of verbal and emotional abuse.
But you saw this prior to getting married.
I did.
When you decided to get the divorce, how difficult was it? Because you just indicated earlier that you thought that's what you had to stand. You thought that you had the capabilities to change him. But more importantly, this is a two-part question. How difficult was it for you to leave? And who helped you to make the decision to walk away?
Well, once I met with an attorney, I realized that I did have options. When I grew up, my mother, it was a different generation. She stayed with my father forever. The relationship was not positive. My mother kept money saved for herself in case she ever needed to leave or do something. And I always saw how dependent, women were back in that age on men. Mm-hmm. And I grew up, and that's why I got an accounting degree. I said I was never, ever going to put myself in a situation where I had to stay in a relationship because I couldn't be alone and I couldn't support myself. So I wasn't sure. I didn't know anything about divorce or alimony or child. I knew nothing. So really, once I went and I met with an attorney, mm-hmm. And I spoke to her and she went over everything with me, I realized that I did have an out, and it was something that it took me a while mm-hmm. to make an actual decision. But I'm the type of person, I will completely research something. Once I have a decision, mm-hmm. it's done.
Let's go back a little bit more. You mentioned your mom and you watched your mom save money. Two-part question on this. Your mom stayed in relationships, so your mom never left.
Correct.
Your mom never left. She stayed there. So I take it that your father was verbally abusive?
A lot more than that.
And you've witnessed all of this. So let's move back a little. Let's move forward a little bit. Did you not start seeing yourself emulating, even though you're trying to get out by getting a degree, because you see that's an scapegoat for you to not repeat or emulate the family legacy?
Yes.
Did you not begin to recognize yourself falling into the same pattern in your own life, in your own relationships?
I mean, absolutely. And, a lot of it has to do with, you grow up a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
You have parents that are who they are. And, the way you're treated when you're younger or experiences that you have, how they really do follow into your relationships in the future. And I saw a lot of that after the fact, but those are the things that you figure out and you really dig into in therapy.
I agree 100%. Let's go back. Let's go back again.
Okay.
Go back in, because I want people to really resonate with your story. So let's go back. And the reason I'm saying let's go back and moving forward is that way you can understand how even going through therapy helped you to get to where you are today. So let's go back a minute. Let's talk about the household. When you're in a household with your mother and your father, and you are a daughter, most fathers really gravitate to their daughters, and they don't want to bring a negative image because you want your kids, male or female, your son or your daughter, to really have role models. How did your dad perceive you? Because evidently this was the abuse hidden from you, from you guys?
It was perfectly there. You're talking about at home.
Yeah.
Oh, it was right in front of me.
Your dad never said he was sorry, tried to hide it from you guys. What was he traumatized as a child, do you know?
I think he did have definite trauma when he was younger.
I mean, I don't condone any abuse, period. But people need to understand that some people don't mean to do it either. They have traumas, and a lot of times they don't know they have these things. But this is a prime example of you recognize something wasn't right in the household as a child, and then start developing coping mechanisms at such a young age to say, okay, well, I need to be independent. I need to have more money. But still, you wind up being codependent and afraid to be alone. Why do you think that happened?
Like I said, I think that I didn't realize that I had any other option other than staying, in that marriage. I really didn't. I just thought I had to be there in that forever because I didn't think I could take my kids out and, support them on my own, because the last thing I wanted was for them to ever, either of them, grow up thinking that what they saw, even at a very young age, was okay in any way, shape, or form. And that was my main reason for leaving. Is it came to a point I had just had enough. I knew things weren't going to change. And once I did my research, there was nothing for me to do but move forward.
You wind up. When did you start going to treatment? When did you start going to a therapist?
I had a therapist all along, honestly. some of them better than others.
Even through your divorce, even before you was divorced from your husband, you was going to therapy.
I was.
So I take it that you were sharing what you was dealing with in your relationship. I take it that you was talking to your therapist about what your trauma was, and as a young lady, I don't see a therapist telling somebody to stay in that situation.
Very true. Very true.
I think they told you to leave, but you stayed, thinking that your concept to relationship was going to make a difference. Am I correct?
Yeah. I mean, I had one therapist very recently in a relationship that I had, about 6 months or so ago. And she said, Marcy, whatever you do, I don't care. You need to get out. And
you
it
stayed.
took a couple tries. It took a couple tries, but he is completely gone. And there are no feelings of any sort towards him. I don't miss him. I don't want him back. Nothing. It took me a while, but I did finally get to that point. So I feel like it's been taking me a very long time. It's very hard to go through having these kind of patterns through life.
Mm-hmm.
But, if you work hard enough and you're dedicated enough to doing it and to really digging into yourself and really putting the work in and getting these, getting away from these relationships, that it can be a really positive thing, for future relationships and going forward.
Your mom stayed in a relationship for the sake of her kids, I assume. And I'm just hypothetically thinking maybe she had abandonment issues too. Who knows? But we know that most women stay there because the male is usually the breadwinner and they don't have the economic resources. And you got kids. How do you raise these kids? But your therapist told you numerous times to walk away. So my question here is, did you think that your method was going to surpass the method of your therapist? And that's another reason that you stayed in there before you decided to leave after the therapist told you several times. Did you think your method was going to change him?
Never. But I still just couldn't cut it off. And, I knew I needed to, I knew it needed to happen, but with
why do you think you couldn't cut it off? That baffles me. I'm trying to get into your mind. Why do you think you just couldn't cut it off? Because you got kids. You don't want your kids to see what you just went through in your own household.
I 100% agree with you. And it's this whole trauma bond thing. I've done so much reading on relationships, narcissism, everything. And it's just one of the hardest things to cut. It's like you want to stay, you don't want to stay, but you can't leave either.
I'm going to ask you a question. You can answer it if you want to. Was there any point in your life through this, something's not right here, but you now have kids involved? Were there ever moments that you shared with your therapist that you might be afraid not only for your own life, but for your kids' safety?
It never came to that degree where it was a safety issue. It was more of like a mental, emotional issue.
So you don't think that your kids may be witnessing the mental abuse would not have effect on them psychologically? Because I'm not a therapist, and nor am I going to play one, but I would just assume that some people say I would rather get beat than to have you mentally fuck my mind. And kids are like sponges. They're going to witness and they're going to see. Did any of that ever cross your mind that they're seeing the same thing that you saw as a child? To me, that would be danger to some extent. What do you think about that?
I agree with you. And, luckily, my daughter is in therapy now. I think it's helping her immensely. I'm sad that I spent the time that I did with the wrong people and that it had to have that effect. And, you know, I just wish I could have done something about it sooner myself that was more definitive.
How difficult was it for you to accept the diagnosis that we all get when we go to therapy? Because it's different when we know we got these things, and we, like somebody saying you're an alcoholic, and then you know what, you go, no, I'm a functioning alcoholic. You know what I mean? But
Right.
now you go to therapy where these people are conditioned to know the mind. And like you said, not every therapist is going to really resonate with you. That's just like you go to the doctor, you find the right one, but you're not looking for the one that tell you what you want to hear. You're looking for the one that's going to tell you the truth. So let's just say you found the one that told you the truth about what you're going through. You don't have to share with us what they told you, because that's private for you unless you want to share. But my question is, when they share with you what your traumas is and what you're suffering with, how did you approach your healing process?
With myself alone and going through it and finding myself, really, because, you know, they can help guide you a certain way, but the only person that really has control over what you're going to do is yourself.
Right.
And taking ownership of it and wanting to move forward and wanting to be better and wanting to develop better habits, better, recognition of red flags. I mean, my therapist right now, if I ever meet anyone, we talk about it. If there's a red flag, she will scream red flag at me. So it's,
But do you recognize the red flags before she recognizes? I think that's part of the healing. It's cool for your therapist, but
Yes.
the therapist is trying to teach you how to recognize a red flag. So
Yes.
Are you capable now of recognizing the red flags?
I've come a long way. Yes. And, I met someone not too long ago, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm not seeing red flags, and I'm just making sure that, there's not something I'm missing. And so I honestly couldn't wait to go to her and be like, okay, this is what's going on. This is what it is. I'm not seeing red flags. So she just kind of went through everything and looked at everything, and she agreed. So I guess I've made some progress.
Well, congratulations on that. Before we wrap up, let me ask another key question. I'm glad that you recognize what was going on in your life. I'm glad that you took accountability and to better yourself with therapy and keeping your beast mindset. I'm glad that you're recognizing what happened at your job. I hope that things works out for you on that tail end, because age is just a number. I don't think nobody should be let go of their job because of age. And I'm totally against that. But I'm also wondering about your children. When did your daughter come to you? When did you think there was a need for therapy for your children? Because that's key. Because I think what happens is we as adults, we get into our own situation and we don't realize that our children are watching us, and they need just as much help with recognizing what they see that we might think is a small thing. To them it's big because they resonated. And now the same concept happened to you. What was the things that made you want to make sure that she got help? Did she come to you and says, Mama, this is troubling me, or you just wanted to protect her and said, look, you need to go talk because you seen some things or heard some things that you shouldn't have seen or heard?
Well, honestly, she would talk to me a lot. We have a really very close relationship between the two of us. And I wanted her to go. And at first she's like, Mom, I just want to talk to you. And I'm like, you need to talk to someone that's objective, that can help you on both sides, that isn't biased at all, and that you can just talk to about anything. And so finally, eventually she agreed to do that because, I love that we have the relationship that we do, but I know that I'm not the person, or I knew that I wasn't the person that could really, have an impact and help her. And I'm so happy, you know, about the woman that she has, because she's absolutely amazing, and, she really connects with her. So I got lucky with that, because it's not always easy to find someone for a teenager. So
Before we wrap up, what should the viewers get out of this episode? I mean, and thank you so much for coming on and being so transparent and giving such a wealth of knowledge, not only about what you went through as a child, what you went through in your marriage, what you went through, with your employment, but what should the viewers get from your story? What should they resonate from your story?
that there is always a way out of things. When you're unhappy in a bad situation, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, there's always a way out. And if things aren't good and things aren't right and you're not happy, there is something out there that's better for you, and it just hasn't found you yet.
Marcy, thank you so much for those words, coming on the show. Keep us posted on your journey. I wish you the best. Wish your kids the best. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been, once again, another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton show.